As busy moms, it goes without saying that we are entitled to our necessary breaks to keeping on with our many expectations of mothering. And me, your host, Philantha, is the mama down to join you for the necessary distraction we all need when life gets too hard, too real, and too much. Join me for an hour of necessary distraction of laughs, cries, and everything in between from adulting, culture, relationships, confessions, and beyond.
Hi, I'm Philantha. I'm your host. First off, I'd like to say thank you so much for joining me on my first episode. I am filled with so much anxiety and so much excitement as you're here to join me. This is new for me, but it's definitely not something that I'm unfamiliar with, as I've had lots of friends who have podcasts and those that have allowed me to join them on theirs as well too. For my previous work, I am so excited to be here, and again, I hope that you enjoy this episode. So once again, my name is Philantha. I feel like that's like something I have to say to kind of break the ice a little bit. First off, I am a dreamer, a doer, and ultimately a thinker. And this whole entrepreneur thing is so new because no one in my family has ever really done that. We are like the first line of generation that is doing anything that's outside of like the normal routine of like you go to school, you go to college, and then you get a corporate job, and then you just do that for 50 years, and you should just be satisfied with it. But I truly believe that I was definitely made for something more, because the way I interact with other people, it just revives me, and I think revives them as well too, because the conversations just keep going. So I would like to say that though I'm a dreamer and a doer, I'm ultimately a thinker. I'm not necessarily a tinker. I can do things. I would like to think I'm great at DIY stuff. I think it's more so a headspace idea, but I leave that stuff to my husband. He's more so the logical, like, let's get things done. He's the military dude, so he will definitely understand how to mark it up and cut it up and nail it and all that stuff. I mean, I can do it too. I'm just a little bit slower. I think I like my pace. My husband is like 6'3", and his pace naturally just gets things done faster, so he's not always waiting on me. I would just like to say that I do like to do a lot of them. I think I'm the creative on that end, and he is the one who executes, and I think that's how our yin and yang team here works. I would like to say that I like my family a lot, like so much that I made a whole Instagram about them, so much that I made a whole parenting program about them, because I can't stop talking about them and how hard I've worked to be a good mom and a good wife for them, and ultimately for myself. So I like them a lot because they allow me to do what I like to do, such as things like this, because of them. So I would like to preface that we're not very much your traditional family in a lot of sense. I'm Asian American, like second gen. My mom was a refugee. He is black and white. He grew up mid-tier, and our daughter is obviously the mix of all of our experiences combined. And so when we think of her, we think very consciously. And when we think very consciously, it goes without saying that we are very cultured. That is a given, and it's a grounding value in all the things that we call family, and that is our safe place. And we work really hard to keep our little nest a safe place for everyone in it and everyone that we call family. We live in Minnesota, and I promise, definitely not your typical Midwesters. I don't think my husband has the background of like his side of the family, that anybody's from like Scandinavia. Sometimes I'm told that I have a Minnesotan accent, but usually that's weird because I'm Asian, and so it's like, how do you really say that? Like, how do you say this person has a Minnesotan accent? Like, do you assume? So I get that. It's a little racially, like, not something you say, but you know, I've had that experience. So with that being said, we have accomplished a lot in our short years before 30. We have loved on our daughter so much. We have loved on ourselves so much. And I know I've learned to love myself so much. And so individually, I've accomplished a lot as well too. And part of that is this passion project that is now turned to full time, that I hope that you enjoy this and click to stay, subscribe to stay, and follow along my Instagram to stay connected as well too. And I'd love to give you a follow back as well, as I love hearing about people. And it's so fascinating to hear the stories, who they are, and all of that and beyond. I think having been on this mama journey, you realize like what truly matters and like what really does not compare to it. And that's not anything personal. It's more so like you see so clearly why you do what you do. And that is the best motivator. And that is the best thing that keeps you moving forward. And I love that I have that like ingrained sense of motivation now, because when it was me, it was easier to just not think twice about what I do. So we have some little, crazy stories that we can probably hash out later, maybe in the season of like early 20s Philantha. But for the most part, I was pretty boring. And so when you become a mom, it's not just the idea of now you've become boring, but it's also just what matters and what does not, especially in comparison to it. Such as this project. It's kind of been a long overdue podcast. It's something that has snuck up on me over like 3 to 4 years, something that has been suggested to me when I go on other podcasts, when I hear conversations with friends who have podcasts who say such nice things. And mostly I've used it as a way to promote my parenting program that I have been serving for the last year, and now transitioning to podcasting instead, as this is just where I naturally thrive in. So we've arrived here. So honestly, it's the ultimate thing that I think I overthought for too long, and just also the thing that every woman needs to bring balance, as much as balance can be balanced, into what we call life. And I think as a mom, fun comes in waves. And so not usually in a lot of time either. So as much as we like to be like, let's go do this careless, funless thing, it's also like, look at all the things that I have to take care of before I go and do that, and all the things I have to do afterward. It's called consequences. Consequences kind of hit you a little bit bigger and harder when you are a mom, but also at the same time, it makes the fun more enjoyable because you know the stake that it is in comparison to the consequences. So I get that. I totally get that. So this podcast keeps up with what you are already doing, such as driving, feeding babies, folding clothes, vacuuming, going to sleep, or even just background morning buzz till your coffee kicks in. I get it, because that's what I do with my podcasts. But also at the same time, I depend on those podcasts, such as doing all of these said activities as well too. So I don't take it personally, really. I think that's the idea of how to connect in this modern time without connecting at the same time so intimately, and also without the due guilt of being like, I want to hang out, but I don't want to hang out because I'm so overwhelmed with my life. And also allows you to enjoy that subtle break that I think is ultimately what I'm here for, and why this podcast is what it is, because even just that subtle break is the difference between what is gonna make you go overboard of being just overly exhausted, and reminding yourself that, taking short breaks releases the fuses so that it doesn't get so tight every single time whenever you have a moment to yourself and everything kind of falls apart and you feel like your life is falling apart. I get that. In motherhood, that happens a lot, and it's normal. It's common, and you're going to be all right. We got this together, and moments like this and tools like this is how we keep going and how we enjoy what is here and how we get to do what we do now, and in all happiness of it as well too. So I'm gonna start off with 5 facts about me, especially since this is the first episode. You might be like, who is she? What does she think she is? Why would she? All of these things, right? Well, I just want to preface that I know I come off easygoing and effortless in my interpersonal communication skills, but I really would like to say I'm a huge hermit that enjoys charging. I like being on charging mode of my social battery. There's not a lot to give of it. Hence why podcasting is so much fun for me, because it's 1 hour that I can release all of that and then be good for the rest of the day. So what you see on my stories is the minute of the hour. And that's my way of balancing myself. That's my way of bringing in my social life in a way that makes sense for myself and allows me to keep being me. And I'm okay with that. So I also want to say, like, you don't want to see me at like 0%. I love being invited to things. I love the courtesy and respect of that. I truly do. I love being invited to go to things, and I'm working on having the confidence to like politely decline. Or if I do go, it's like I have to know what's going on, or like I have to really, really enjoy this person to have those like small talks. I'm fine with small talks. I come off as if I enjoy them. I do to a point, like to my values. So what I'm trying to say here is that like what I'm trying to avoid in these social moments is my RBF. And I don't know what or how or why, but my face does not tell how I am. It's not something I can control. I wish I could like do that, but my face doesn't do that. So I keep that very much in control. And so lots of like smiling, but like then it comes off like Chrissy Teigen when she does her fake smile. So that doesn't work out at all. And then it seems like I'm not enjoying myself. But then if I'm not doing that, then I'm hiding. And then like if I'm hiding, then like why am I at social gatherings, right? Right. So that's what I'm trying to get at here. I am a true introvert that can be extroverted. And when I am extroverted, I am at my element. Let me tell you, I definitely am. I am a true Capricorn, and that I am all about my work, but also I party just as hard when I'm with the right people. And I really am, I can be the life of the party if I am with the right people. I'm all about good vibes and good people and good food. If there's food, I'll probably be there, especially if it's like, yeah, good food, I'll be there. Sushi, I'll be there. Salmon, I'll be there. Caviar, I'll be there. And so I would just like to say, because of all of that, I'm huge into personality tests, like everything. I think it tells you so much about who you are and how you can better present yourself in situations like social mediums. And so you know how to expect the goodness out of you and how to expect that out of other people and how to carry on that conversation. Can you see how this gets like really technical? Like I do get very technical because as an introvert, it does not come off as seamless as I think it does, unless it does. And that's why people think I'm an extrovert. So I guess that makes sense. I think that logic makes a little bit more sense than like me overthinking it, but I am an overthinker, like I said in my intro, so I can go down that rabbit hole really quickly. But I guess the idea here is that I'm always down for a deep, wise, focused conversation. Like to me, that's so electrifying and so cool to like have these people in my space and have the interactions and responses that they do about whatever topics that we're talking about. And I love when they can carry the conversations, especially when it's hard topics, and just being real about it, like not, sentimental about it, or I mean, it's fine if it is, but just more so just the deep talks about it, for like the conversation of curiosity in itself. Like that is so cool. And so I hope I can bring that onto this podcast as well too, because I don't know about you, but when I learn about something, I like it to be cool. And when I learn something, I don't like it to be educational, like in a classroom with four walls and a whiteboard and a teacher and the formality of it. I can't learn that. Like as an ADHD person, it's got to be hands-on. It's got to be through storytelling. It's got to be like sensory driven. I wouldn't be able to get the sensory driven for you as this is a podcast, but I can get the auditory for you, and definitely just the overall experience through that type of senses. Another fun fact is that one of my childhood dreams was to become a pediatrician until I realized all the math that had to go into it. I never really learned my multiplications, especially when you're supposed to in third grade. And so math and I are not like best friends. So I have a husband for that. Otherwise, I have a calculator for that. And I am very thankful for that technology. Obviously, I know my multiplications now. Okay, we can say that. But that, like, to become a pediatrician is so much schooling. And honestly, school was not a thing that I was really into because I was undiagnosed ADHD. And like, looking back now, it's like, now I understand why school never made sense to me and like why I work so hard. Like the amount of time and effort, especially as an adult now, I value how intimate that is for me. So looking back, it's like, man, no wonder I failed a lot, or like why I was seen as like the dumb kid, or why I always felt like I came off like the teacher's pet, but that was truly because I was suffering. I really couldn't read, or like I could read, but like it took me a really long time to read the same thing and comprehend it. When you have ADHD, you know what I'm talking about. So instead, I wanted to become a mom, like a good mom. And so growing up, anybody that you ask would know that I love like my toy babies. I pretended I was mom. I pretended I went to all of the baby's needs, even in the middle of the night. That's another story to tell. Maybe my sister can come on and tell you like the reason why I stopped playing with them. I think I was like 9 or 10 and I'm still playing with them. I think one night she convinced me like they come alive at night, and like that really freaked me out. And so after that, I'm pretty sure I like threw them out and thought that they were like the most vile things, especially after Chucky came out and like I was forced to watch that, and it was very inappropriate for young children. I kind of believe like that story. And so very wicked of an older sister, but I guess that's what they do, right? And I don't do babies anymore, but I did become a nanny. I've always been around children my whole life. I think just culturally, you are always around children, at least in my culture. And so becoming a nanny was like a given, as I was also like ever since I was 14, I was a camp counselor. And so you're always with all types of children and you get all types of training and everything like that. And they renew it every single year. And then with that role, I was able to become a nanny and be with multiple families, long-lasting families, and you become like family for them. And so the idea of being a mom was something that I always treasured so well, because I got to see the type of parentings or understand and comprehend the sensitivity and like the nurturing aspect of it that I treasured. Like I thought it was so sweet. You never get to connections like that. And that was one that I always wanted to envision myself in. So when I did become a mom, it was like the best thing ever. And that is a goal for me. I understand not everyone's stories is like that. Everybody lands in becoming a mom, or the idea of mothering so differently. And I totally respect that. For me, I loved the idea of it, and having become one has been one of my best dreams that has ever come to life. So I am honored and treasured by my moments of coming into this role and valuing being good at this role. And that's something I think I need to like pat my back a little bit more, as I know it's something my husband says to me a lot, but like when he does, I'm like, oh yeah, I am good. Am I not? Yes, I am good. That is right. I will also like to preface that like the reason, I know you're probably like, oh my gosh, Philantha, you wanted to be a mom. That's so cool. Must have been so easy to be pregnant and wanted all of this. And sort of, kind of, a little bit not. That's the best answer I can give you. I think that's saying a lot without knowing that like I did not have a perfect pregnancy. We think a lot about having baby number 2. And I think a lot about the will that goes into the pregnancy, as I had morning sickness for like the first half of my pregnancy, and then had sciatica really early on, like literally as soon as I was done with like morning sickness. So like week 22, 23 of my pregnancy, I had sciatica right off the bat, and that was like on both legs and like through my whole back, and that I had to wear a brace for 23 of the 24 hours in a day. And towards the end, it was like brutal, because she was heavily choosing my right side and was hanging pretty low at that point when she did drop in the last like 4 weeks or so. And I will just say in postpartum, I had delayed postpartum anxiety, specifically intrusive thoughts, which took a lot of happy memories that I would have wanted to instead participate like in. And though I'm proud of the work that I've gone through in order for that, and know better now and can choose better decisions because of it, such as just being able to know that the thoughts are just thoughts and things like that, and use the coping mechanisms that did help. It allowed me to be the mom that I've always envisioned and get back right on to the horse that led me into wanting and loving and honoring being a mom. So overall, I love my journey of becoming a mom and being my daughter's mom. And there are definitely days where I'm like, oh my goodness, this is a long day. like today. And oh my goodness, she asks so many whys and all of these amazing things. And if she would just get into her car seat, then we can just go. Yes, of course, all of that's valid. And all the more reasons why I keep manifesting for a stable future that I didn't have growing up. I compare both, and I'm really proud of where I am. And I'm really proud of the mom that I've become despite it all. And I think it's just about being a human and accepting that you are human, and all those feelings and emotions and thoughts are allowed and validated as long as it's something that brings you joy and happiness. That's kind of like the premise of whenever I talk to moms. I'm always like, are you good? Are you happy? How can we get you good and happy? Is this momentarily, or is this something that would benefit from therapy and make you be the mom that you should be because you want that? I know you do. Anyway, getting off task there. So anyway, hence, if you have been following me on Instagram, I created a 2-part online course for parents recovering from childhood trauma and creating generational healing instead with their own family and for themselves. So I speak a lot about all that because I am very fortunate that we live in the house that we do and that we've been able to make the moves that we have, because it means so much more from where we came from. And I know that there's still so much more to come. And I hope that this podcast is a gateway for that and allows all of those conversations to be had with amazing co-hosts and interviewees, because there's so much more to growth than just it being like educational. So, I think you go. Are you catching my drift? Is that what they say? Is that the idiom? I think you do. The third tip here is that I am super clumsy and not coordinated. Like a chicken is better coordinated than I am. Literally, I have sprained my ankle on the sidewalk. Who sprains their ankles on the sidewalk? Like, I'm talking about the edge that meets the grass, that little like 2 millimeter. I sprained my ankle on that. Like, went down full body, slammed on the side of my thigh and bruised my hip because I like knocked over it, like just walking. Like there wasn't, like, I can't tell you enough like how ridiculous the sprain was and how embarrassing it was to have to explain it to people when I had a brace on my ankle for a while. Yep. Another instance is that I ran forward to go up the stairs to go grab my daughter as she woke up from her nap, and instead landed on my back and got the wind knocked out of me while bringing the staircase podium down with me. Like, I don't understand. I still don't know how that calculates. I was going forward, so I don't know how I fell backwards. And I only know this like logical thought because my husband was like, there's no way that happened. And instead of helping me, he was laughing at me for a little bit, trying to calculate how it happened. That's just the mere balance of our relationship sometimes. And here's another thing, how you know I'm like super uncoordinated and clumsy. And I do say this in like the most loving, positive note because I know myself and I'm very, very happy and satisfied being on the sidelines. Is that as a kid, okay, imagine this. Being picked last in gym class for like directed sports. So anytime we played soccer, football, baseball, softball, anything like that, basketball, outdoors, and you had to be picked into 2 teams, I was never the kid that got to pick the team. And I was always the last kid, I guess, sitting on the grass outside and having the gym teacher like bribe them to add me to the team. And the annoying part is I still speak to some classmates from elementary, and this is the one thing that they avoid talking to me about because they know that it was true. And the thing is, I just sucked. I was not a coordinated kid, and I get it. And this also taught me a lot about kids as well too. It's just that like kids are ruthless, and no matter what team I was on, like no matter if we were playing like offense or defense, I was always guaranteed not to be passed the ball. Like they were protecting me. Like even if we were supposed to be playing the team and catching the ball, like the ball was never in my direction. And I was never to tackle anybody as well too. Like I was just always running just from one end to the other. And the suckiest part is like the gym teacher called it. Like he knew I was not made for this. And I get it. As an adult, it's awkward, but just pass me. And luckily he did. I'm so glad that he passed me for all 6 years of elementary. Because that's embarrassing, and I get it. It's hard to have those conversations, especially when it's the same gym teacher who's seen you grow up from 5 to like 12. 6-year-olds are 12, right? Maybe 10. Also, when I said earlier that the kids are ruthless, I mean also into like adulthood, because they're also the ones, when I tell them that I do suck, they're usually the ones prompting that we play like a casual sports game. And I get that it passes time and it's a thing to do. I totally get it socially. And you see why I am socially awkward here, or why I get socially awkward, is because like they're usually the ones prompting it, and they're usually the ones that are super low-key competitive and get the most mean about me sucking when we are playing, in which I already prefaced prior to the event that I do not play, and I'm very okay not playing and not trying, or not playing just for fun, because I know it's never just for fun when I'm not the one not having fun. Like, I'm very much okay not having fun participating. Instead, being the greatest cheerleader and spectator with all the snacks and wine on the side, cheering everybody on. Like, that makes me wholesomely cool, collected, and satisfied to be on the sidelines. So there's that story. The fourth fact about me is that I love doing DIY projects. I love TikTok for all that they've come up, especially when they actually leave like tips on how to actually do the project instead of just having me watch it. Or it's awkward when you have to like DM them, you know? But I will have to say, like, it's more so like my husband does the logistics of the wood, the measurement and such, and I come up with like the aesthetic and the design and where to put it, or why we should choose it, or like where to get the material. So, you know, it balances out. Okay? And so far, we have vamped up my daughter's dresser from blue with white dresser handles to white and gold handles, as she went from her newborn bedroom to her big girl bedroom. And I am so proud of her for that. And so it's so put together now, and totally completely different from when she was a baby. And we have so many more projects, from like the bathroom renovation to actually put a bathtub in there so I can take baths instead of in my daughter's bathtub, to what we do with our preservation of a backyard. That is a whole story on its own, due to a mean neighbor and generational wealth and why it's so real, to finishing our mud room and then maybe putting in like a theater room in the basement. What I mean by that is, like, we already had it at our previous house. We just need better equipment as the room is now bigger, and the prior house had some things pre-installed, and this time we would have to do it from scratch. So that's the difference. So it's not like we're setting out a whole thing. Okay, yes, we are. And it's not like it's our first time doing it. So hopefully that helps us when we do actually do it this summer, if not the following fall. Oh, so many more things that overwhelm me and excite me at the same time. I can't believe I get to do all of these things, especially as like my little girl who's always dreamed of being able to own and do all of these things. It makes me so proud of myself. I will have to say, we used to do a lot more like DIY projects, from like cabinet work to painting to wallpaper and just like decor things at our previous house. But our new house is freshly 4 years old, so there isn't much we wanted to do or change up, and that was kind of the point. Like, we worked hard to get to this new house in order. Also, it took us like 2 years to find it as well. We've been searching for 2 years, and thinking back now, saying that twice, like, that was a really long time. And that's something that nobody teaches you when you are buying your second home, that it does take a little bit of time. The first time, I think it took us like 6 months. And we're like, oh, okay, this isn't bad. The second time, 2 years. 2 years, because we're looking for something of a more permanent home instead of just like a starter home. So completely different values there. And I think that's where a lot of like millennials as well too get mistaken when we do speak about our house, because our house was not our first house. It was not our starter house. It's our like big house that we want and loved and worked hard for and will stay in for a really long time. Hence why I didn't want to touch anything in the house, because I wanted it all laid out the way it should, as we did do a lot of DIY projects at the previous house, which is why I wanted to leave that. I have a thing, like, if I am going to do something with it, like even if I bake things or if I cook things, I don't really eat it. I don't know what it is. I just don't do that. And so like when I do DIY projects, I'm excited for the project to start. I'm excited for the project in the process. I'm excited for the project after effect. But looking at it and everything like that, it's just not something that excites me anymore. And I think that's like what makes me a millennial, truly. The fifth fact is that I prefer Target over Walmart, even though I've been fired twice from there, like first from the store and then another at corporate. Yep, I have family members that do actually work at Target corporate, and it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing, but like I'm not embarrassed by it anymore because a lot of it was like I was young. There was a lot of other things that went into it, such as like favoritism, whiteism, white saviorship, all that stuff, all that cool stuff that like you can't put in HR. So it makes sense. Would I now, if I was in that situation, would I have been fired? I don't think so, because I would have used my voice and called out the petty stuff that did happen that resulted in an unfair firing, is what I would consider it. But when it came to the store, it was more so because I was a temp and I was only there for the holiday. But I was surprised that because I was let go from the store, that they had even hired me at corporate anyway, and I lasted as long as I did. It's quite interesting, really. And I'm pretty sure I'm like blacklisted from Target now. So it's really interesting because I still prefer Target to like buy stuff, even though I was banned from it. But then again, that's the same story as like another window place here in Minnesota that I also got fired from. But now that I own a house, I keep getting like the advertising stuff for it. And it's really interesting because it's like I was fired from you guys at corporate and you guys want my money for windows. It's really interesting. It's really interesting how marketing works that way, or like how businesses just don't care. Or if I were to bring it up, it'd be embarrassing for both of us. Like truly embarrassing. So that's my little mini story here. I will say though that Walmart is really nice, like outside of Minnesota. It's kind of ghetto here. It's really run down. It's just not. It's always dirty. It's always unorganized. But when I have gone to Florida and California Walmarts, they're like really nice. I think there was one in Maui as well too. They were like good. Like I could see the value to them, and I can see the great value that they promise of all of their products. In Minnesota, it's not that. It's really not that. And I will say another fun fact is that I prefer romantic movies over horror movies. And here's my thing. I'm a chronic anxiety-ridden person, so I don't like being scared or getting scared. It's just not an emotion that sits well with me. I got a lot of trauma about that. It's still the trigger for me. We don't talk about it. I do not find it enticing or satisfying in any form. I like the whole villain aspect of it. I don't like the spooky part. I don't do any of that. So no, I don't do like scary Halloween movie rides or anything like that. And this also includes like normal surprises like promotions or birthday parties or like in gifts. I really, really am one of those people that will just be excited to know what my surprise is and still be in all form of that full emotion when presented with the said surprise. And I'm very much okay with that. Like that is the best bet because my husband has seen me melt down, and it's just not socially a thing that you want to see live happen. Like I will literally cry, and you can't tell if it's a good cry or a sad cry, and that's just not socially be there. I will say I prefer nice long baths to soak in over short showers. And of course, just like every woman out there, it's got to be in skin burning hot temps in order for it to be worthwhile. And I just have to say that something about that whole thing with candles and books and bubbles and salt is very romantic in every single way, especially because it's how I romanticize myself. And I love it. I love it with a glass of wine. And the one thing why I want a bathroom renovation is because I don't know what it is. I know I can't be the only one out there, but I cannot take a bath, or I just prefer not to take a bath right next to a toilet. Like that's so weird when you hear the toilet going or you think about it. It's really gross to me. So the one thing about baths is that I have to clean the toilet and I have to clean the bathtub before I actually take a bath. And that is how I can actually decompress and take it all in as far as a nice warm bath. And I will say, especially when I was pregnant, it really helped alleviate like the lower body pressure, as I'm only 4'11", and that 30 pounds was a lot on my short self, especially on my back. I had overriding sciatica and like that relaxin hormone that just really relaxes those hips, whether you like it or not. It usually is more present later in your pregnancy, but for me, I had it about ever since halfway through my pregnancy. So if it wasn't the morning sickness, it was the relaxin hormone doing its thing and the sciaticas too. So it was not fun. But baths made it so much easier because it just immediately took away all of those side effects and helped me give myself an hour of relaxation and rubbing on that belly, loving on that body, and really loving every aspect of that pregnancy. It allowed me to be more in tune with my body and allowed me to still meditate in the same way that I did with baths prior. I will say that I so prefer skincare routine over makeup routine. And it's true. It's so true what the experts say. So I have Asian skin. So it takes us a really long time to even like have wrinkles and things. But like your skin health is everything. Like before I was on a 7-step routine for morning and night, my makeup always looked dry or like it never really sat well. And it was really hard to like blend the textures of the makeup with my skin texture already, and also just like with mom skin after pregnancy, postpartum, like all of that and beyond, it just made the skin texture itself and the sensitivity really weird. Definitely took a few months to balance it out, and I think that's where the 7-step routine was everything, especially since it was medicated. What I mean by that is like I got it through somebody who can get a higher dosage, like my skincare lady, and not just the stuff that you get off the shelf where it takes a longer time because it's not as potent. And actually, like she talked to me about like what each 7-step was for and why you have to use it in the order that you do. Maybe I'll show you what it is one day, but I will say it is everything, and it's something that I live by like as if it was my Bible. So with all of that said, especially after baby, during baby, it just was a lot on my skin, as my facial skin is something that you see every day. And I liked my makeup. I like to play with makeup, but it made it really hard for me to get that like effortless, just enough to enhance my already there features type of makeup look like done. Otherwise, it just looked really dry and cakey, and that is not cute on anybody. And just overall, I'm more of a natural girl anyway when it comes to makeup. I pretty much the cream blush, medium coverage concealer, lipstick, and eyeliner. And that's about it. I keep it pretty simple because I don't have a lot of time. And I also don't look that good with a lot of makeup. Like if I did Kim K type makeup, I would not look like me. Like my features do not fit that American style like makeup in like 2019 type look. I get how cute and pretty it looks for certain facial features, but not my facial features. And I've learned what looks good and what does not, especially when I've had my own days of my face literally look like it was caked on, even in the middle of summer, because I was convinced that's how it's supposed to look, with thin brows, and everybody went through that phase, and I thought I looked pretty hot and still got a husband out of it. It's a whole mess, and I'm really surprised he stayed. He stayed for all of that and beyond. So overall, skincare is everything, and you can never start too early. And the best advice I have for skincare is you have to have really good, like not oily base, not white tinted sunscreen. If anything, sunscreen and washing your face every night and every morning. Those are my 2 tips for really good skincare. And again, I'm not an expert. Maybe we'll bring on an expert to talk a little bit more about that. So the one thing that I would like to do to wind down the night is, well, for me, it's nighttime, but for you, it might be like a good afternoon to start winding down. It's that like 4 o'clock time when you've done everything. You've been up since 6 o'clock, and that 4 o'clock time seems to be the perfect time for you to start winding down, right? So I call this the happy hour. And on this podcast, we express what is one thing you got to get off your chest, a personal, a work pet peeve, a daily task annoyance, something you hate to love, or a guilty pleasure. So for this bit, I will have to say good mom friends are so hard to come by. Okay, that's my statement. Like, I could be cool with you. You could be such a dope person and we can totally vibe. And I'm like, oh my God, we're best friends and have such good conversations. But then I see the interactions with the kids and it's just like a hard no for me. I think as a parent, it goes without saying, that you think about their physical, emotional, and mental safety, especially when you come from a trauma-based background like me and understand just even the subtle things. It made such a big impact as someone who is currently in 2 types of therapy to help heal from that. It's not something that is a soft boundary for me. It's a very hard no for me. And that really, truly, at the end of the day, hurts me. It really hurts me because the good mom friends, again, are so hard to come by. Like, you want mom friends that you can just be with without explanation of who, what, when, or where, or having to use social cues of like, please, you're welcome, not a problem, happy to help, things like that. Sometimes it's nice to just have that friend that you can just talk SHIT about and it being a void for you both to decompress from the day. And I have found that and I have lost that. And truly, it was a very dark funnel for me for a while because it was a lot, especially in 2020. So being able to give that trust to my friends is foundational and so necessary for them to be long lasting and have those family type relationships that's outside of family. And from those experiences, this value truly varies. And I've seen that. Like, it's so weird how it's not the same. And it kind of leaves me with my jaw open as, again, it's such a discovery that not everybody sees that as like a hard boundary. But then again, no one's got like recovering inner child trauma. So personally for me, because of how culturally mixed we are, by default, we are highly aware of the cultural stigmas, and just being a cultured family, we set our boundaries in how we show up, and we have to respect us first, ultimately, even if it means us being sad for a few weeks, because we have to lose friends that don't honor that and respect themselves enough to know that boundary and set it up respectfully. And I have to say, what we really, really value at the end of the day is that we really like ourselves, like our family, and protecting our babe from like racism, emotional abuse, even if it's normalized within our own cultures, and overall just mean adults. It's weird. It's such a weird world out here. I think that's the one thing that nobody really teaches you about parenting, how much of a variety there is in parents and how much they're willing to let go. And it's really weird to have to ask them, like, why do they let it go? Like, I'm a curious person, like out of curiosity, not judgment or anything, but just the why they let it go. Some things go and not others. It's interesting. So one thing that I hate to love is a reality TV show. Right now it's Selling Sunset. It's the knockoff pop songs that really do it for me, because you can really see that they tried. And I get it as far as like the technical behind the scenes. I get it, but it's so poshy. And though we don't have cable or like set channels for like this typical stuff, like the Kardashians or like the housewives of any county or like the family, like the Duggar family, we do have like Hulu, Netflix. So again, that's why I said Selling Sunset. And so it just blows my mind that like how celebrities shop for homes and how not your average realtor look like that and make money, like, and aren't taken seriously, because from the Midwest, I don't know how that would look like here. But then again, I guess that's why it's LA and there's a whole niche for it and how you get into it. The drama between the girls make really good TV, and I can see that, but I really just can't get over the facade that is like kept up for just house showings. They really are like parties. Like, they got like Botox parties for a showing. I want to be invited to that, like, just to be in that space of like not buying but spectating it all, or like assuming that I would be able to afford something like that. Oh my gosh, the amount of confidence for that. It's just, maybe that's a goal of mine. I don't know, but that sounds so cool. Like, what? I'm not really a name brand type of gal, so like more so functionality and like if it's pretty. And so I think that's why the show catches my eye, because a lot of things are so pretty. But I am for like the 10-step skincare line and like self-tanning, and obviously self-cleaning for like self-care regimen. So when I see them, I'm like, wow, is that how like we are all supposed to look like? Or is that just what they look like? Because I feel like all of them have fake boobs, right? And they all have Botox, which nothing is wrong with either of them. If they make them feel great, that's amazing. But I feel like the two dudes who own it, is that a little like condescending a little bit? Like, I don't know. It's kind of weird to me. It's totally fine. But again, I just out of curiosity, like that dynamic is really interesting for me. So I guess that's why I keep watching on, right? Like we all have our reasons for binging this reality TV show stuff for sure. So Mama, you've been listening thus far, and I just want you to know that you aren't alone in adulting, especially when adulting is hard. And this podcast will just release all of that, all of the vulnerabilities and all the doubtful things that you think about yourself. I promise you, you're going to hear all of that and be like, I'm in my right place. Especially because no matter what adult milestone you're at, hard is a consistent thing that you didn't ask for. I didn't ask for, you didn't ask for, but the thing that we just have to do, right? So I want to know is, what is one thing you wish someone taught you about growing up and being responsible for, like for the rest of your life? For me, how I'm going to answer this is deodorant, okay? Deodorant. I'm going to say that one more time. Deodorant. How I take this in is that you are grown. You are a grown woman, and personal hygiene is something that we learn in middle school into high school. And if you don't know, you ask. And if you don't know, you smell it. And there's so many varieties, and there's nothing wrong with trying. Like, just keep trying until you find the right one, and maybe also look into the resources of what goes into deodorant. Like, learn how to take care of it so that you don't leave everybody else feeling or more like smelling like covered sweat and powder. We're all not 14 anymore, so that's not an expected smell. But I will say, postpartum and everything, yes, that stank is real. That breastfeeding hormone stank is so real. So there is so much that can be done. Again, trying is everything. Feel free to DM me or send me a voice note, and I'd be happy to contact you and give you my list of what's worked. Like, truly, from one woman to another, I'd be happy to do that. And like, I feel like when you're an adult, the cost of deodorant is not really the matter especially if you are buying the same one since you've been 15, obviously you spent all that money, all that $4 over the course of 15 years to have spent that amount. So if you're talking about cost of deodorant, it doesn't really matter now, especially when body ordinance and you've been an adult and being in social settings, body odor matters and smelling good matters, especially in this society. So body ordinance is necessary. And personally, it's respectful to yourself. It's how you are taking that self-care time for you. So use one that doesn't have aluminum or baking soda. Those are just irritants. They're not going to mix well with the bacteria that's building up. That's the stink, and the sweat that's coming in. It just makes it more irritable to the skin as well, and it doesn't really mix well. So though I think you may not smell, when you're doing that whole secret arm on the hip to wait out the stink, everyone behind you can tell you that you stink and where it's coming from. And that is so disrespectful to you and for everybody as well. Personally, it's embarrassing. So do yourself a favor and stop buying the same deodorant when you were 15. And again, email me and I'd be happy to recommend a few to start. That was a lot to say. And I just want you to know I have your back, and I mean that in the most supportive, welcoming, and positive note, because I think it matters so much on how you love on yourself. And loving on yourself also means taking the honest take and really choosing a good deodorant that is good for you. All right, y'all. You guys have just joined me in the first episode of The Necessary Break. And I really hope that even just for a mini one, or if you've listened to this in parts throughout the day, that you have enjoyed this as much as I have recording this for you. And I truly cannot thank you enough for your time today.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of The Necessary Break with your host, Philantha. We love that you enjoyed yourself with this episode. Send us a voice memo of your favorite moment, write a 5-star review, and click subscribe to be the first to listen to the next episode. See you next week.